welcome to the Law Firm Accelerator. Today we have Holly with us. Holly is a family law attorney in Pennsylvania. Holly, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you for having me today. I'm excited to speak to you about a lot of what's going on in my industry as well as yours.
So, Holly, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your practice and why you decided to go into the field of family law.
Sure. My name is Holly Sheridan, and I decided to become a lawyer a little bit late. I had already signed up for college at a state school to do finance or art or pretty much anything but law school. And one thing led to another, and I ended up going to law school and absolutely loved it. I love the law. I love the process. I love the system, even though it's extremely broken at times. And I'm a big believer in the Constitution, and everyone should have one. So now shooting forward many years, when I started out as a new attorney, I was working at a small law firm here in Pennsylvania, and my now husband at the time was finishing up law school in Florida, and it was a general practice. I did all types of law: criminal, family, estates, contract disputes, personal injury claims, you name it, I would do it. And as a young attorney, that is extremely, extremely intense and a lot of pressure because you're still trying to learn how to practice law. And then when you're thrown into different areas of law, you really have to know what you're doing and be competent in each area. So about 2 years into practicing there, at this point, my now husband, Hillary, is living in Pennsylvania. He was a public defender in a county over. He's always done really well with criminal law. I just had this moment. I thought, I can't do this. I'm so stressed and unhappy. This just is not going to work out long term. It's not sustainable. So I was 27. I had zero plan other than I knew I can't keep doing what I'm doing. So I turned in my notice. It did not go well. And now years later, this man is still my mentor and we have a good relationship. He said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. He was like, you don't have a job? And I was like, no, I'm just going to go home. So at the time I was broke, a brand new lawyer, living in a 1-bedroom apartment with my boyfriend. And I had one client, one of the clients that, frankly had a complex case, was like, well, I got to go with you. So I just started with one client, one check. And then from there, it just slowly grew. And the 1-bedroom became a 2-bedroom with a bonus room. And then we moved back into my parents' house so we could have more space because now we had to take over the formal dining room. And so at the beginning days, it was a lot of trying to get our ducks in a row, but also not knowing how to do that. So a lot of research, a lot of reading, different material on management, recommendations, and also becoming a business owner. And that in and of itself is a big task. So if I look back at the early days, and they were definitely fun. I miss those.
You started pretty much kind of like a law firm in your garage, it sounds like.
It kind of felt that way. Yeah. And so when I started, just to answer your first question completely, I had started my own firm with no investments, no assets, no real money. I could afford the $9.99 at the time GoDaddy website, a cell phone. And, my expenses were under like $100 at that point, other than trying to figure out my living expenses. And then as things progressed, I really thought I will never do family law again. Out of all these areas of law I was doing at my old firm, I couldn't stand family law. It was just something about the rules and the lack of concrete black and white rules in family law bothered me. I like taxes. I'm a rule-based person. So when I started the firm 10 years ago in that apartment, I said, I'll do personal injury law. That's where I actually love and I have a passion for. But slowly over time, family law cases just kept coming to me, being referred to me. And I started taking them. And throughout that ride until today, I really love family law now. It is an area that I do not intend to leave. And I look at it so differently than I did as a young attorney, where it was just, I needed the black and white roadmap so I could tell the client, this is going to happen. If we do this, X is going to happen. But in family law, it's not like that. And I think once you learn to embrace the fact that this is an ebb and a flow each day, how you parent your kids or you co-parent with your spouse or ex-spouse is going to shape what tomorrow looks like. And so now only do family law. but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
It's funny. I think sometimes our jobs pick us. If you told me like 10 years ago I'd be working with lawyers and doing marketing for lawyers, I'd be like, what? You crazy. I was a travel blogger and, it was great. And I love this job. This is actually my favorite job that I've ever had. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just end up in life where you never thought you would.
Yeah.
And you love it.
Mhm.
So you start your law firm basically in the basement. Now I'm a marketing person, so my very first question for you is, did you open a Google My Business listing or a Google business profile? Because now you have to have an office in order to open it. But 10 years ago, you could have done it from like anywhere, basically.
I believe at the time, this is a great question. At the time, one of the first things I did was go and get a P.O. box. And I believe I could register it to the P.O. box at the time, which now later we've had to change it to our physical locations. But that's a whole process, as I'm sure you know, like setting up your Google location and maps. So, but yeah, I think I got in right before they got really stringent on no PO boxes.
So, to our listeners, one of the questions that I get a lot from brand new lawyers, or rather, not brand new lawyers, but people who are brand new at setting up their law firm is, do I need an office? Can I use a virtual office? And the answer to that question used to be yes, because you used to be able to open a Google business profile. And Google business profile, besides your website, is probably the second most important internet property you could have because it is part of Google Maps and it is one of the best ways for people to find you. Right now, you can no longer set up a GBP, which is short for Google Business Profile, without a physical office. So when I have folks come to me and say, I have a law firm, but we're doing virtual, usually I have to tell them I can't even work with you because I know that I would be just taking their money without delivering a really big, important part of the pie. And I always say it like this: look, I don't care where your office is. I don't care if it's a shoebox in in somebody's basement somewhere, but it has to have a legitimate USPS business address. It should be a separate suite, and then we can set you up a Google business profile. So that is the very first thing you should do before you do any marketing at all. Make sure you have a GBP, and you can do it yourself. You don't need to pay an agency to set it up. There's plenty of tutorials online, including, I think I actually have one on my website as well on how to set it up. Okay, so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's so you opened up your own law firm in your apartment and you work with your husband.
Yes. So probably the first year and a half, this is like 2014. He worked as a public defender for the next county over part-time. And that's how we got our benefits, like health insurance and whatnot. And then he worked at, it used to be Samuel Law Firm, which was my maiden name, which we've now changed over time to Sheridan Lawyers. But eventually, about a year and a half in, it became to the point where like we could not sustain the PD or the public defender clients the time it was taking because it became at the cost of our clients. And then that's when I still remember having this moment at a restaurant. And at this point, our daughter was born. So she was a baby. And us just deciding, like, screw the benefits. Like, we just have to do this. Like, there's no other way. So that felt like a big jump for us. It was just losing that security blanket of, even though public defenders don't get paid much, it's still like a steady paycheck. And that's something as a law firm owner, you're constantly thinking about. And then, you could probably relate once you start having employees, I'm no longer worried about my steady paycheck. I'm worried about making sure my employees have their steady paycheck before I even pay myself. So it's just interesting how your priorities stay the same, but it also shifts over time.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a challenge being a small business owner. I would say health insurance is always such. I've joked with my friends, like, I'll marry you with you, as long as I can have your health insurance, I will marry you. It's a joke, but in every joke, there's part joke.
Well, to feel better, I incorporated, it was Samuel Law Firm, but Sheridan Lawyers in May of 2014. And I did not have benefits. And then my husband and I pretty much eloped in June of 2014, a month later, because I needed benefits. And we're going to get married anyway, but we're too. But the benefit was a large point of that conversation. I'm just like, what do you do?
It's such an American conversation to have. It's so easy to start a business in the States. And like I have employees all over, so I know that there's so many roadblocks in other places in the world when you want to start a business, and it's so much easier for us. But on the other hand, we have our own unique challenges.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so you start your business, you're clearly doing well. You have 7, 8 employees besides you and your husband? Something like that, right?
Something like that. So we're, including my husband and I, we have the 3 full-time attorneys. And then we did bring on a full-time HR this last year and a half, which has been awesome as a small business to bring in HR. And she does, operations and helps with payroll. We have a full-time marketing employee that we brought in about 2 years ago. And then we have paralegals, and then multiple legal assistants. So altogether, it's like 11, give or take. One of our favorite employees, and they're all favorites, is getting ready to be deployed to Kuwait for a year. So we're loving her extra now, and we can't wait for her to have a good experience and come back because her job will be here.
Right. So you have a pretty big law firm. Usually I start this question off by going, tell me what kind of marketing is working well for you. But because we had a whole conversation about this, and because I know that you are far from alone, I know you've had a less than ideal experience with a marketing agency. And just to give our listeners some background, every single person I speak with, almost without exception, except for the few people who came straight to me from like law school, they've had terrible experiences. And as much as I obviously hope every person who listens decides to go with me, I may not be the right agency for everybody. But what I do want to do is I want to talk about your experience, and then in hindsight, what were the red flags? What can we avoid now in the future, as well as what maybe are the green flags and the other things that are working for you? I hear the same stuff over and over again. So let's talk about, as much as you can about your experience and what happened, and how did it end up? How did the whole thing go, basically?
So maybe it was 2 years ago, my husband and I, and I don't know if it's just this company we ended up working with. It's a lot of glamour and, hey, come down. It's like a big show. And why you should, hire these people to do your marketing and business. And they did like a business management professional coaching. And so at that time, it was post COVID, and my husband and I, know we need to take the next step and get organized in our business practices. So we decided to sign on with a company, and it was a lot of money a month, like a lot of money in hindsight. I want to almost like hit myself in the head. So anyway, that being said, we did end up getting a professional video taken. And we were assigned a business coach to work with us pretty much, I say, like as needed, or at least once every other week or something like that. So I really thought, and my husband I think would agree, the value in this for us was the coaching. And after a series of like multiple coaches, people quitting we could never actually like establish a relationship with a coach where it felt like we're getting anything done. So in hindsight, and then the video came out, and it's nothing that it's not the video they displayed at their big convention or something like that. But in hindsight, so a couple of the red flags were the revolving people I was working with. During discussions, instead of, my husband and I come in, we're asking like specific questions, like to make sure we can get the most out of this experience. And when it's almost like a therapy session, they start asking the question back to you, and they got to talk to somebody else before answering the question. It started to feel like we're just going through this cycle, but like we're not actually gaining anything from it. And in hindsight, though, what we did learn from this entire very expensive experience that with that company I wouldn't recommend is, finding someone that's more like in your situation, you're a small business. You likely work with everyone directly. Whereas this case, it was a lot of just the glamour and I hate to use the word whining and dining people or whatever to stay. But the most important piece of this that we took with us is carving out the time that we were giving this company to get stuff done. We didn't need to work with that company. We just had to carve out the time in our personal and professional lives to sit down and start having conversations about marketing expenses, what's our 10-year plan, what's our vision. And on the business development side, how are our procedures and processes and how we can better support our employees. So I do believe that the light at the end of the tunnel is, we value carving out time to work on business and marketing tasks now, which we didn't before.
Great. So your experience is very, very typical. And just from hearing so many folks talk, I'm hearing some red flags there for sure. And I'm going to use myself as an example, not because I'm the only good agency out there, but because I know my business best. When I speak to people, I always clarify that while I have a big team behind me, I am the person who owns the company. Final responsibilities with me. You talk to me, and should there be a problem, you come to me directly. One thing I've noticed with a lot of agencies that may not do as high quality work as I'd like to see in this industry is that there is really nobody responsible. And if they are responsible, they're responsible for a portion. They're not really there. They don't understand, either they don't understand the technical stuff, or something feels a little bit off. So when you are talking, the first thing you need to do is when you're talking to the marketing agency is, who am I going to deal with? Who is the person who is going to be there to answer my questions? And if they're just a salesperson who doesn't seem to have a lot of knowledge, then I would say that's a red flag, right? Because a salesperson is going to have a very hard time understanding. Now, if you are assigned an SEO and that SEO happens to be very good, what you should do is you should talk to their clients. You should ask them for referrals. Have you been speaking with Mr. Jack? Right. How long have you been with him? How the person who knows their stuff, how is your experience with that? Ask for references for that specific person, not for an agency. Because when you have a big agency and you have 12 specialists, SEO specialists, one of them might be good. The other 6 may not be. You know what I mean? And certainly salespeople don't have enough understanding. It's a very, very complex business. I would definitely say make sure you're assigned a good technical person. Like I said, in my agency, I am the technical person. I'm the strategist. So it's my agency. Another thing, the whining and dining generally means they have a very large budget. And if they have a very large budget, then why is that budget not being put towards their clients?
I really think they're in those big corporate law firms that you have people going and, they're not necessarily bringing back, the results that literally my husband and I need and we're looking for.
Yeah.
But just to speak to what you just said, about asking, that should have been my first red flag. So we go back for like this workshop or whatever, and everyone's having lunch. And I said, or my husband said to someone like, oh, who are you working with? And they said the person's name, and it happened to be our first person assigned to us, who my husband and I had already decided had, really did not have the knowledge that we're looking for. And I said, well, how's it going? He was like, oh, it's great. And she really, helps me like work on my goals. And I'm thinking to myself, to my husband, we got to get out of here. If that is like the standard of like doing great and people are happy with that, like this is not for us personally. So red flag way.
And another good point is, look, there are agencies that do small companies really well and that do larger companies really well. Now, I will actually not take on a larger law firm. And the reason why is because I just don't have the process for them. They need a lot more hand holding. I'm not set up for this. My systems are not set up for it. So look for somebody who specializes in your size law firms, whether that be small, big, medium, whatever. What you want is clients who are in the same practice area as you, and who also have a similar number of lawyers, similar number of associates, and similar number of office staff, right? So like right now, off the top of my head, I can give you 10 people who are in family law who are very similar size to yours. And that should be the response of any agency. Another thing, of course, if you ask them for references and they're only able to give you a reference of somebody who's outside of your practice area or different size, that's a red flag. Another one, and that might not be the one you've thought about, I should be careful about this, the best guys and girls I know, and there may be other ones, but the ones I know do not require any long-term commitments. And the reason why, I don't have a contract at all. I have an agreement month to month, you can cancel. And the reason why is because I don't need it. Nobody leaves if you do great work. And if they do leave, what am I going to do? Sue a lawyer? Come on.
And that was how this company was operating. Like, well, you're in 2-year contract. And I kind of went back and said, okay, so to resolve this, I'm leaving this. This is not going to work out. And, in consideration, I will not, go on social media and basically blast you for my experience. So, but you're right. That's a red flag. They should not, and that's the same thing with employees or clients. If it's not working well and jiving, you don't want to keep that relationship moving forward. Like, at least that's how we look at employees. Like, we have a really, really amazing culture here. And it's fun and it's silly, but also it's hardworking and honest. And, when we have an employee come in or a new employee and it's just, I really don't like a lot of negativity and, I'm very much a teacher. So I want to teach employees how to do something so next time they can do it. So the first flag that we see that this probably isn't going to work out, we no longer keep that person. So, it's the same thing I would imagine with marketing. Yeah,
and it works the same way for clients. Look, sometimes people come to me and I sign them up and I just see it's just not going to work. Why am I going to waste my time? Why am I going to waste your time? I would rather give you a refund and wish you the best of luck. And you know what? Nobody's ever mad at you on social because you gave them a refund.
Because you look at it more like compassionately, I feel like.
It's like
it's not working. Best of luck both ways.
Yeah, if I can sleep because the client is stressing me out, it's not worth it. So as an agency owner, and again, I know an agency who works with very large law firms and they don't do contracts either because they just don't need to. Now, I will be clear and explicit and look, we're not going to get your results in 3 weeks. That's just not how marketing works, right? So you got to give us at least 3 to 6 months, depending on your area, but you will see results in 3 to 6 months, enough that I don't need to put you on the contract. So that's a big red flag. There are basically 2 types of agencies out there. The ones who focus on promoting themselves and the ones who focus on promoting their clients. And so if your resources are going heavily into promoting yourself, then chances are they're not going as heavily into promoting the clients. And it sort of doesn't, I'm not sure why it's that way, because it doesn't need to be, because you could run a really good ad campaign for yourself and your client. But for some reason, that's what I notice over and over again. So that's sort of a pattern.
I've never thought about that, but it seems very accurate from my experience.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry about this bad experience. We spoke about this before. Unfortunately, my industry is unregulated. Anybody can do anything, which means when you have a good business model, you do great. You have wonderful clients and you don't feel like you need to put anybody on the sales pressure. Like, I'll follow up with my sales, of course, but I'm not here to sign. On the other hand, it also leaves a lot of room for people who may not be, as conscientious. And I apologize for my industry, the fact that you've encountered this, but it sounds like you've figured out a lot there and you're doing marketing in-house now. Now, you're not doing web design and SEO, I noticed, but what are you doing? Are you doing social media marketing in-house?
Social media. She does do, manages the website. I'm also like an event coordinator and works with our local, in our local community to set up, events where we can market. One of our offices is in a town called Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, which it's famous for the mushroom capital of the world. And there is a mushroom festival every September.
Hey, that's awesome.
1,000 plus people get drawn to this little town. And our office is right on one of the main streets. So that is one of our biggest marketing events of the year. And, in the past, we've given away a MacBook Pro. If people signed up for our raffle, signed up for our newsletter, it's just a really fun way to meet members of the community, and it's an annual thing. So she coordinates all of that. She gets, pretty much everything done. I think you saw that she also does a newsletter on the Uptown Express. So, the goal is to have quarterly ones that are a little bit longer. But the monthly one or the short one is just like a blurb. We want our clients to see us. Hey, we're still here. We're still doing stuff. Give them a little bit of, whatever the season is or, the topic, the hot topic in family law. I like to give a pro tip. For example, in the summer, we have a lot of families and clients come to us, fighting over school for next year or summer camps. So it's really just trying to, focus on, hey, right now the hot topic's this. Here's a little advice on how to best deal with it and co-parent, and really just for encouragement too. So, and I do think people read it because it's free from our, it's from a law office. It's free. It's something that's like, I hope to, bring people in just to reading what's going on.
So, a couple of great points there. First of all, I have to apologize for my family walking through the background. I live in Brooklyn and we have limited space.
That's okay.
So I may have asked my family before not to, but I'm on the phone all day. So
Yeah.
they're just like, and then you saw my pit bull open the door in the back there.
Totally fine.
So, okay, the newsletters.
Yes.
So you have a little bit of an interesting situation in your office because you have somebody who has a long sales cycle and somebody who has a short sales cycle, right? Mm-hmm. Family law is a longer sales cycle because people take a while to make that decision. Mm-hmm. And so they will do a little extra research. They may read a newsletter before they make a move. Mm-hmm. With criminal law, on the other hand, it is a very short sales cycle. I need a criminal lawyer right now. And a lot of people are simply embarrassed to ask people they know, an attorney. So what they'll do is they'll go and they'll type it on Google and they'll get, whoever has the most reviews or whoever they feel like has the best connection with them from let's say, socials. So the newsletter is a great idea for your family law and brilliant idea to advertise at this festival. I bet you get good PR and it's just a great way to do it. For your criminal law, on the other hand, if you try to do a criminal law newsletter, you probably wouldn't get a lot of bang for the buck because, again, those people have to make decisions quickly. And you're going to have, hopefully, no repeat clients in criminal law, right? I know. Many of my...
reality, but that is the hope.
Well, yeah. So many of my clients will say a lot of times they'll talk to a person and, hopefully they never hear from them again. Mm-hmm. I actually hope the same thing for your divorce lawyer clients too. Yeah. I hope you don't get a lot of repeat business there, although I'm sure there's some, probably more than with criminal. So it does call for different type of marketing. Now I'm an SEO person. I'm an online Google person. That's my specialty. That's what I do. So I look at it from the viewpoint of what is the best return on investment. And still to this day, the best return on investment, assuming you have a great agency, of course, and you have a good experience, is going to be SEO, search engine optimization. But having those newsletters in the long run can be very helpful to help you nurture those leads and stuff. So you are doing a lot of social media, but that's also a longer sales cycle. What do you do for your husband's portion of the business, sort of the criminal law? How do you advertise that?
Well, a couple different ways. I'll tell you a way that didn't really help first. Speaking directly to the point of what you just said, there's business networking groups or national, there's small chapters. So for a while, he was involved in our local one and he went in as a criminal attorney and nothing's coming out of this. And we finally sit down, we're like, why would we go under the criminal law category in this setting? When I'm with business owners, I'm with people that know someone who might need a guardianship of an elderly. So we switched the category to a business attorney because he does do business law as well. And then all of a sudden things start to click. But if any of those people, though, here someone needs a criminal attorney, they do send it over. There's also free advertising in a lot of ways. Like, for example, the daily local news for our area just came out with the best lawyers or top lawyers of Chester County, which is like a voting reader choice where they vote. And we were listed in multiple categories. And my husband was under DUI, landlord tenant, and then we're under trial. So I think just the more people that you engage with, you'll receive some of that word of mouth, as well as he just one day started leaving court because he comes back with pretty fun stories from court. It's just the stuff, you can't make it up, right? You just can't make it. And he's definitely a criminal defense attorney. I've fully decided, we got in an argument recently and I said, this has to be the result. All of the evidence points to this is missing. It had to have been this person. And he goes, it's a 98% probability, but I cannot say with certainty. I'm like, so it drives me nuts. But kind of all of that, though, you get a little bit of his personality when he leaves court. He has been filming himself walking back to the office is a couple mile or a couple blocks away, walk with counsel. And just a little blurb about, hey, what did he just deal with in court? And try and give, some of the viewers, a little bit of or snippet of the law that day. Um, and one thing with criminal defense is, like you said, it's a short turnaround. Getting clients in right away when they call today, not 2 weeks from now, and or jumping on a call, talking to a new client. Also sending out, letters because where we're at, it's published who's been charged with a crime. So I think just globally, we try and do a lot of little things. But he does. He would love talking to you because he's our Google guy. Yeah. So
That makes sense. So social media, usually the best social media is done from in-house because social media is so unique and you have to truly understand the person. I actually just recently spoke with another criminal lawyer in Arizona who's doing very well on social media. And what he does too is something very similar where he goes and he explains things and he's passionate about this and he does a lot of pro bono work. And I think if you love it, it'll come through on social media. Like I can talk about digital marketing, 26 hours a day.
Yeah.
I think when you love it, it comes through and it's genuine. And I think it's very hard to outsource that kind of thing. So having a social media house in person is often a good idea. And you can often, start with somebody who is relatively inexperienced because even if they're inexperienced, they probably know a lot about social media due to just being, younger and knowing all this TikTok and all this stuff. So a lot of times it's not even a very expensive hire because you might be getting somebody right out of college, but they will come in with good expertise in that. So good for you on maximizing that. And it sounds like you're doing really well with it.
Yeah.
So we are almost out of time, but before we go, I would love to ask you for your favorite client story. And I know you have a good one.
Oh, that's so hard. I don't know if there's a favorite or most memorable. That's hard. I don't know if I can answer that, and it's not because, if I'm being very honest, a lot of my cases are sad. I try and look at it in a positive light, but, you have these families that are going through a transition and a separation, especially with children. I don't know, maybe my favorite story is from years ago. It was when I got my first now one suite office. So probably like 8 years ago or 7 years ago. And he came in and his wife had taken the two littles and just moved to a different state, like almost 3 hours away. And he had substantial custody, meaning like he didn't have shared custody 50-50, but he was like a good 42%, 45%. That's a lot. And under Pennsylvania law, a relocation is defined as any move that would impair the non-custodial parent, so in this situation, dad, his ability to exercise his custody or substantially interfere with it. And I just remember being shocked that the mother said, it doesn't interfere. He's just going to lose one overnight a week and it's not that big of a deal. And so we ended up fighting it. That was at the beginning of the school year. By Christmas, we're at a full-blown trial. She has already moved back because we got into court pretty fast and the judge said, you better get your tail back as fast as possible. But then it came back, and we did the full trial. But looking back, now he has 50-50 of his children. They're at the school that, he really wanted them at, and they're doing good. So I think it's hard to look at a case as a favorite, but I do love to see cases a few years later and see that they're doing well.
It's a hard job, but when you do it well, these kids, they're probably so much better off for having their dad close to them. And
oh yeah, oh my God, he was so involved too. He was like the sports coaches. This wasn't a case where you have But in some cases, it's really sad. I see parents that don't want to be involved. And then you have parents that need the help. And so navigating each case, you take little wins when you can. But
it's a job that requires a lot of empathy. And that's how you get through the not so good moments, right? By knowing that you're helping Yeah, it's a sweet story, and I hope that the children are doing well. And I bet they are grateful for having their father in their life.
I hope so. Yeah. So, well, thank
All
you
right,
for
good.
having me on your podcast. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you for joining, Holly. Please stick around. We'll finish the upload, and I will see you guys next time.
All right.